This is a U.S.-China media brief produced by the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. The U.S.-China media brief features interviews with experts and other prominent individuals involved in studying and documenting the dynamic and ever-evolving relationship between the United States of America and the People's Republic of China. I'm Russell Leong, Director of the U.S.-China Media Brief of the UCLA Asian American Studies Center. In your 30 years of traveling to China, have you seen the viewpoint of Chinese workers change? How do they view American corporations and factories that employ them? Do they see them as a friend or as an exploiter of their labor?
The overall view of the increase in foreign investment in China has been welcomed by most of the workers that we have spoken to and met over the course of many years. Most U.S. corporations are actually decent employers. Most pay competitive wages and benefits in relation to other employers in China. And so overall, I think the presence of U.S. investment has been viewed by most people in China as a good thing. However, that's not universal, and the reality is that especially in some of the economic trade zones where there is a rampant use of contract labor, that we see tremendous worker abuse. And so, we talked about Walmart. The conditions in the 72 Walmart department stores are actually quite good. They are competitive to other retail stores, and their wages and benefits are similar to other major retail corporations. However, most of Walmart's investment in China is not in the department stores, it's in the manufacturing sector. And in many of those sectors, Walmart has a ruthless reputation for pushing down wages and maximizing the exploitation and abuse of workers in China through the use of contract labor. And so you'll have many, garment workers, many toy manufacturers, toy contractors who are paying horrendous wages, and where these workers are living in substandard dormitories. Walmart is the direct beneficiary, but they refuse to acknowledge any direct employer role with these workers. And so I think that's where the broader concerns of exploitation and abuse occur in China.
Yeah, recently we interviewed a professor from Hong Kong Institute of Science and Technology who was involved with SACOM, a Hong Kong organization which basically monitors corporations like Disney. It's because Disney produces a lot of, with Disneyland in Hong Kong, they produce a lot of products in Shenzhen, in the southern China region. And their goal is to have the American corporations like Disneyland adhere to the Chinese labor standards. And they were sort of successful actually in doing so. Now, if Chinese workers basically see American corporations as as their friends, and being able to provide jobs, workers in America, on the other hand, are encouraged to believe that corporate America is also their ally, and China and the Chinese workers are their enemy. So what kind of alternative mantra do you have for, say, American workers? What would you tell, a rank and file American worker today?
Well, number one, there's not a monolithic perspective with regard to U.S. workers, either in terms of their relationship with corporations or with their relationship with workers in other countries, including China. So I do think that it varies tremendously, union to union, region to region, industry to industry, and whether we're dealing with public or private sector workers. So I do think that the importance of these exchanges is that it puts a human face on workers of China, and when you bring workers and workers together and they share their stories, they understand that the conditions that Chinese workers face and their hopes, dreams, and aspirations are the same as workers in this country. So I do think that there's tremendous benefit of developing that understanding so that there's not a blanket view either that U.S. workers have of China or Chinese workers, or that people in China have of US workers. That being said, there are differences within the American labor movement with regard to our relationship to China and our relationship to Chinese unions. And so last month, the Change to Win unions in this country, led by Anna Berger, who is the chair, and Andy Stern, who's the president of SEIU, made a historic breakthrough in developing formal relations with the All China Federation of Trade Unions. This is the first time in history that unions in this country have developed formal relations with unions in China. I think that's a very good thing. And I hope that the AFL-CIO will also begin to strengthen their outreach and communication with unions in China. We've seen some positive signs along those lines where a number of AFL-CIO union leaders have traveled to China and are revisiting the historic embrace of Cold War policies with regard to China and unions of China. So I do think that things are changing, but there is tremendous economic insecurity in the United States, and there has been a very strong protectionist perspective, particularly among some of the manufacturing unions. And so I think that that still impacts the current policy with regard to China.
Now, as I said, I was going to ask you this question. I'm sure you've been asked. President Obama's recent move to place a 35% tariff on China-made automobile tires was hailed sort of as a victory for American workers and U.S. labor. And I was wondering what your response is to that.
I think that the protectionist policies that have been advocated by U.S. unions have to be understood in the broader context of massive deindustrialization, massive job loss, and tremendous economic insecurity among U.S. workers. And so I sympathize with those concerns. I understand that there's a lot of anger, a lot of resentment by U.S. workers who have watched the demise of the auto industry, of the steel industry, of the rubber industry. It's easy to try to blame the culprit by saying China is stealing our jobs. That's basically what the AFL-CIO has said in the past. It's China's fault they're stealing our jobs. When in fact, it is US-based multinational corporations that have made very calculated decisions to abandon US workers and to shut down even profitable factories and to relocate in parts of the developing world where profits are greater based on depressed wages. So that is not the fault of Chinese workers, that is the fault of US-based multinational corporations. So I think that's where we really need to focus the target. So I do think that the protectionist position that was advocated by certain unions in this country with regard to the tires from China is a continuation of a legacy of protectionist perspectives, which really does not address the fundamental problem. Even if these tariffs stand, that is not going to bring those jobs back to the United States. Those multinational corporations have left long ago. If China does not supply those tires to the US, it will be other parts of the developing world. So the US labor movement needs to strengthen global dialogue and exchange. They need to develop stronger policy initiatives, and now they can under the Obama administration, that will help to save US jobs and that will help to generate parts of the US manufacturing economy which are strategic in relation to areas where the US can retain a competitive edge. So these are much broader questions than just a knee-jerk response to a single trade tariff.
The preceding copyrighted program is a property of the University of California, Los Angeles. All rights reserved. It may be used freely for educational and not-for-profit activities. For other uses or to make an inquiry, please contact the Asian American Studies Center at UCLA.